It's Pastor Kim coming to you with a word for your weekend. As we have been doing over the last few weeks in our Friday devotions, we're looking at a text from the following Sunday that we're not going to be addressing in church. So this is a text for the first Sunday in Lent, February 21st, and it comes to you from 1 Peter, the 3rd chapter. Christ also suffered for sins once for all, the righteous for the unrighteous, in order to bring you to God. He was put to death in the flesh, but made alive in the Spirit, in which also he went and made proclamation to the spirits in prison, who in former times did not obey, when God patiently waited in the days of Noah, during the building of the ark, in which a few, that is, 8 persons, were saved through water. And baptism, which this prefigured, now saves you, not as a removal of dirt from the body, but as an appeal to God for a good conscience through the resurrection of Jesus Christ, who has gone into heaven and is at the right hand of God, with angels, authorities, and powers made subject to him. You know, water is an integral part of the created order. Water sustains life, it fosters life. Too little or too much water can end life. A glance at the news headlines points out to the destructive power of water's presence or absence. Last summer, we saw severe droughts afflict several parts of the country, along with the wildfires that accompanied them. On the opposite end of the spectrum, floods ravaged other areas, displacing many people who lived near water from their homes. For those living on or near the eastern seaboard, hurricane season is a tense time every year, just as it is in the Gulf of Mexico. Yet we need water as much or more than we need food, shelter, or the other staples of human life. Since ancient times, people have built their communities near sources of water. We cannot survive long without it. The tension between the saving and destructive powers of water are what we find in the readings for the first Sunday in Lent. The waters of the flood overwhelmed the world in the days of Noah, yet 1 Peter reminds us that God delivered Noah and his family from death. The Holy Spirit descends on Jesus only after his baptism, yet the Spirit immediately drives Jesus into the desert. We'll hear about that in our Gospel reading Sunday. And the desert, of course, is a place defined by its very lack of water. Through water in the world, in baptism, our old sinful self is put to death and we are reborn as children of God. But the current that flows through these paradoxes is this: in death and life, in flood, in drought, God remains faithful. As the psalmist reminds us, God's mercy and steadfast love are from everlasting to everlasting. All of the readings are connected closely today. In the first reading, the sign is the sign in the sky. The rainbow is the reminder of God's covenant with the people. In the gospel, God's Spirit, descending like a dove from the sky, is the sealing of a new covenant. And the reading from 1 Peter that I just shared with you pulls those two stories together, pulls together the story of Noah's Ark and Jesus' baptism. Just as the flood washed away so much, but brought salvation and safety to representatives of God's great creation, so too baptism washes away our sin, and the baptized person emerges safe and saved. Immediately after Jesus is baptized, we'll hear this on Sunday, the Holy Spirit drives Jesus into the wilderness where he's tempted by Satan. Baptism doesn't make Jesus' life easier. Baptism does not fix things for Jesus, just the opposite. baptism complicates life, Jesus' life and yours and mine. And it's because baptism will compel God's people to strive for justice and peace in all the earth. Yes, there are plenty of philosophies which call us to a similar action, but none are backed up by the Holy Spirit actually forcing the action. I invite you to think about what are some choices your baptismal calling has led you to over the years. What are some faithful decisions you've made that are counter to conventional wisdom because of the Spirit's prompting? And ask yourself this: what is God's Spirit, the Spirit you received in holy baptism, calling you to do today? Have a great weekend. See you Sunday morning.